Hello, good evening and welcome to News Around the Globe at High Impact Television. I am God's Time David. Here are the top stories. Nigerians must now appear in person for visa renewal, US. Federal government directs prisons, fire services to employ 9,675 Nigerians. Alabama passes bill banning abortion. Sri Lanka extends nationwide curfew after anti-Muslim riots. Aston Villa beats West Brom on penalties to reach playoff final. And now for the news in full. 469 lawmakers were elected on the platform of various political parties in the February 23rd National Assembly elections, and the subsequent supplementary elections will get 4.68 billion naira as welcome package immediately after their inauguration in June. The package is to help the lawmakers sort out accommodation and furniture issues. According to the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, accommodation and furniture allowances are two of the irregular entitlement of lawmakers and other political office holders. While accommodation is paid once every year, furniture allowance is paid once in 4 years. The Federal High Court in Abuja on Tuesday restrained the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and other agencies involved in the probe of Senate President Bukola Saraki over corruption allegations. Saraki on Friday filed two separate fundamental right enforcement suits before the court to challenge the decision of the EFCC to seize his houses. Ruling on an ex parte application filed along with the substantive suits by Saraki, Justice Taiwo on Tuesday ordered the anti-corruption body and other 5 respondents to the suit to stay action on the probe pending the hearing and determination of the motion on notice filed by the applicant. The judge made the order after hearing Saraki's lawyer, Sunday Onubu, who moved the application. The United States Embassy in Nigeria has announced stiffer and stricter visa application processes for Nigerians. The embassy said in a statement on Tuesday that henceforth, all applicants, including frequent travelers who use the drop-box method, would now have to appear for interviews each time they apply. It, however, said diplomatic and government officials could continue to enjoy the status quo. The status read, effective at the close of business today, the United States mission to Nigeria is indefinitely suspending interview waivers for renewals, otherwise known as the drop-box process. Still in Nigeria, the federal government has directed the Nigeria Prison Service and the Federal Fire Service to employ 9,675 Nigerians. While the prisons will employ 7,475, the Fire Service will recruit 2,200 new workers. The two agencies were directed to carry out the employment by the Civil Defense, Fire Immigration and Prison Services Board. A statement in Abuja on Tuesday by the Secretary of the Board, Al-Hassan Yekmoud, said the CDFIPB chairman gave the approval at the board's meeting held between May 9th and May 10th in Abuja. It was not immediately clear when the recruitment process would start. The board, headed by the Minister of Interior, Abdurrahman Dambazo, also approved the abolition of dichotomy between holders of bachelor's degree and higher national diploma HND in the services under the Ministry of Interior. Opponents of Liberian President John Weah, in a meeting of the Council of Patriots on Tuesday, maintained their stance to demonstrate on June 7th, despite a call for dialogue launched by the head of states. The call is to demand that President Weah resign or find a solution to the appalling economic situation of the country, affecting most of the populace. Liberian politicians have been accused of trying to create tensions around this demonstration between the American Liberian elites, descendants of freed slaves who have dominated Liberian political life for 170 years, and the indigenous, including George Weah. Benin's justice system opened a judicial investigation on Tuesday following the kidnapping of 2 French tourists on May 1st and the death of their Beninese guide in the north of the country. The Office of the Special Prosecutor of the Court for the Suppression and Economic Crimes and Terrorism of Benin reported on Tuesday that it opened a judicial investigation to determine the causes and conditions of the incident that led to the disappearance of 2 Frenchmen and the death of the guide Vika Agbeji. Patrick Piquet and Laurent Lazimolas were released 10 days after their disappearance by a French army operation in northern Burkina Faso, which killed several people, including 2 special forces soldiers. However, the Benin authorities still have not officially acknowledged their abduction and continue to talk about their disappearance. Alabama lawmakers have passed a bill to outlaw abortion outright in the state, and it is set to be the strictest of such United States law. The state Senate approved the law by 25 votes to 6, rejecting exemptions for cases of rape or incest. It will now go to Republican Governor Kay Ivey. She has not said whether she would sign it, but she is seen as a strong opponent of abortion. Activists hope it will challenge a landmark of 1973 Supreme Court ruling that legalized abortion in the U.S. Abortion would only be allowed in certain circumstances to safeguard the mother's health. Sudan's military leaders have announced an agreement with the opposition alliance for a 3-year transition period to a civilian administration. The Transitional Military Council TMC said the alliance would have 2/3 of the seats on the Legislative Council. However, the 2 sides are yet to agree on a sovereign council, the top tier of power where both want a majority. Hours before the latest deal was announced, at least 5 protesters and a member of the security forces died in clashes in the capital, Khartoum. In Sri Lanka has imposed a nationwide curfew for the 2nd night in a row after a wave of anti-Muslim violence in the wake of the Easter bombings. A Muslim man was stabbed to death while rioters torched Muslim-owned shops and vandalized mosques during Monday's attack. Police have arrested 60 people, including the leader of a far-right Buddhist group. The United Nations has called for calm and a rejection of hate. Legislators in San Francisco have voted to ban the use of facial recognition, the first United States city to do so. The emerging technology will not be allowed to be used by local agencies, such as the city's transport authority or law enforcement. Additionally, any plans to buy any kind of new surveillance technology must now be approved by city administrators. Opponents of the measure said it will put people's safety at risk and hinder efforts to fight crime. Those in favor of the move said the technology as it exists today is unreliable and represented an unnecessary infringement on people's privacy and liberty. In a particular, opponent argued the systems are error-prone, particularly when dealing with women or people with darker skin. Facebook has announced curbs on its streaming feature ahead of an online extremism summit in Paris, called after the Christchurch mosque attacks. The tech giant said there would be a one-strike policy banning those who violate new Facebook Live's rules. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern called the measures a good first step. In March, the gunman live-streamed the attacks in New Zealand, where 51 people, died. Ms. Arden will chair the summit with French President Emmanuel Macron. It aims to coordinate international efforts to stop social media being used to organize and promote terrorism. About 2,000 people have protested against a church being built in a park square in Yekaterinburg in Russia. Tuesday was the second day of the protest in what is a long-standing conflict over the planned church. Activists said building St. Catherine's Cathedral on the square will destroy one of the city's few green spaces. But the Russian Orthodox Church says it needs new churches to replace the many that were destroyed under Soviet anti-religion rules. This particular church will be a replica of one such cathedral that was demolished in 1930. It is due to be completed in 2023 in time for the 300th anniversary of the founding of Yekaterinburg, Russia's fourth largest city. Asda could be listed on the stock market after its merger with supermarket rival Sainsbury was blocked by the competition authorities. Judith McNair, chief executive of Asda's owner Walmart, has told staff such a listing is being considered. But she told managers at an event in Leeds, where Asda is based, any listing could take years. It has left the giant United States retailer Walmart looking at options for the supermarket chain it brought 20 years ago. While we are not rushing into anything, I want you to know that we are seriously considering a path to an IPO, a publishing listing to strengthen your long-term success, Ms. Kenna has said. China has a glorious history of being open to the world, and it will only be more open, President Xi Jinping said in his first public address since trade tension with the United States spiked last week. China and the United States are locked in an escalating trade war, with both levying tariffs on each other's imports. Just before Xi spoke, the government reportedly surprisingly wicked growth in retail sales and industrial output for April. Xi was addressing a forum in Beijing organized by the propaganda ministry called the Conference on Dialogue for Asian Civilizations. He made no direct reference to the trade tension, focusing instead on presenting China as a non-threatening country open to other countries. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's surprise visit to Baghdad this month came after United States intelligence showed Iran-backed Shiite militias positioning rockets near bases housing United States forces, according to two Iraqi security sources. He told Iraq's top brass to keep the militias, which are expanding their power in Iraq and now form part of its security apparatus, in check, the sources have said. If this is not done, the U.S. would respond with force. As tensions between Washington and Tehran increase, Iraq finds itself caught between neighboring Iran, whose regional influence has grown in recent years, and the United States. In entertainment, Australia would take part in the final of the Eurovision Song Contest for the 5th year running after making it through this year's first semi-final. Singer Kate Miller-Hyde qualified with Zero Gravity, a pop opera combo she performed in Tel Aviv while suspended in mid-air a bendy pole. Leather-glad punk band Hetari also went through the Iceland with their dark techno track, Hate Will Prevail. But there was no happy ending for the Finnish representatives, DJ Darudo has added. The Jeremy Kyle show has been asked by ITV after the death of a guest who took part in the program. Seven Diamond was found dead on May 9th, a week after filming the show, during which he took a lie detector test. Caroline McCall, ITV CEO, said given the gravity of recent events, we have decided to end production of the Jeremy Kyle show. ITV had initially suspended filming, and the Prime Minister's spokesman called the death deeply concerning one. And in sports, World Athletics ruling body IAAF may have put the machinery in motion to stop Nigerian athletes from participating in this year's African Games in Morocco, the World Athletics Championship in Doha, as well as the 2020 Olympics game in Tokyo, following the country's refusal to return the $134,000 which the IAAF mistakenly paid into AFN accounts 2 years ago. The amount was said to have been paid by IAAF as part of its $15,000 annual grant to member federations for the year 2017. But instead of the $15,000, the IAAF mistakenly paid $150,000 to the AFN. The IAAF accountants later discovered the error and subsequently asked AFN to refund the excess payment. Still on sports, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the best manager to rebuild Manchester United, but needs time to get the team back in a position where they can compete for titles, the party midfielder Ander Herrera has said. Solskjaer, who took interim charge of the club in December, won 10 of his first 11 games in charge and was handed the job on a permanent basis in March, only for results to nosedive in the month that followed. United were knocked out of the Champions League quarterfinals and finished 6th in the Premier League after a dismal run of 2 wins in their last 12 games, leading to questions about whether the Norwegian is the right man for the job or not. And that's it on the news, but before we go, let's take another look at the top stories. Nigerians must now appear in person for visa renewal, US. Federal government directs prisons, fire services to employ 9,675 Nigerians. Alabama passes bill banning abortion. Sri Lanka extends nationwide curfew after anti-Muslim riots. And that's it on the news. Thank you for watching. I am God's Time David. Have a good evening.